Okay, so let's get started with the project. For this, we're going to go into projects, and within here, we're going to create a new folder. And please consider keeping my naming convention. So 01 E-signature and -app. Okay, within here, let's create a file and let's call it E-signature. And we're going to call it, we're going to use now capital letters. So E-signature and app.js and x. Okay, I'm going to use here a self-exporting function RFC. I'm going to use the export up here, export default function and signature function. So we're not going to use class-based components. We're going to use function-based components. Let me delete this here. We're actually going to export here a div with a class of container. So class name, container, and I'm going to also use text center as style. Let's go right in here. I'm going to create our very first component. So let's create a folder outside of the projects. You know what? Let's create it in the project. So projects, new folder, and we're going to call this components. And all of our components will live in here. And I'm missing here an N. Components. There we go. So let's create the very first component. We have to create here a title component. Title.jsx, RFCE, or just RFC. RFC. And there we go. So the title component. The title component will consist of an h1. Let's replace this div with an h1. Let's give it the class name of title. And let's also add here text center. Let's hit enter. Let's import this component so we can already see what is happening here. So importing the component, and let me first of all hit save. Let's import the component here. Also, if you just type in title, the component, because it's already in here, should be recognized. If you have all of your snippets, close it up, hit save, and you should see the title component right here. There's nothing in here yet, just the title. And we also didn't import our project into our application. So app. There's our app. Instead of this project, we're going to import our very first project. So our first project is the e-signature application. You can already see it's recognized here. It's also imported and automatically up there. Just close it up, and now you should see title, because this is what we have in here in the component and also in our application. So remember, the strategy here is not to install React 1000 million times, but each and every application that we're going to create is going to be imported here, and this is going to be the application. So the next application, just going to comment this out, and then I'm going to comment in the next application, or import in the next application. Okay, let's move back to our signature application. We got here our title, the component. We imported it up here from components. Now we're going to go back to component because this is not done. We still need to add a couple of things. Let's say the title will not be title, but it's going to be something else. So the idea here is that I'm going to create a condition. So if there is a title passed in here, a variable, let's just say if there is no text passed in here, then use the text of title. If there is something passed in here, then use that text. And we're going to pass this in as a prop up here as text. Okay, so if we pass in something into our title, for example, in our case is going to be text and this will be name, then instead of title we're going to have name. You can already see this appearing here. But if we wouldn't have anything in there, then it's going to be title. We're not done with the title component. I also want to add here a couple of conditions for the class, or actually just one condition. So instead of having this in here, let's wrap this into curly brackets. And let's say if there is a class passed in here, or there are multiple classes, or if there are no classes passed in here, classes, then just display the title, text center, and so far and so on. But if there is something passed in here, then we are going to use those classes. So classes, and what am I doing wrong here? I have too much S's here. And also let's pass it up here. You can pass it before the title even, or before the text. So classes and comma, and there we go. So if I would pass in here class, let's say I'm going to change this. Let's use classes prop. And let's say I'm going to choose here to pass in instead of a title, let's say this is going to be a subtitle. So subtitle, which is basically a class that I do have in our CSS. Let's see, you can search here, .subtitle, and there we go. It's going to have a font size of 2.5 RAM, font weight of 400, so far and so on. But the title is much larger, should be up here, 3.75. Okay, so if you're passing in some kind of class, there is anything else, then the title, then that will be that will replace the title class. Okay, so we have our title, and actually I'm going to copy this one more time because the second one was going to be date. We're going to have a name and a date, exactly as we have here. You could also change this or leave it as main title, and this will be bolded out, but you know what, I'm going to change this down here to main title, and I'm going to leave this as title, so like that. Okay, next I'm going to pass a paragraph tag under this title, paragraph, and you can add here lorem, let's say lorem 300. That's too much. Let's just leave a lorem ipsum as it is. And let's pass in here a margin bottom of 4. It's going to give us a bit more space here. And now for the text, so for the date, we have here date and a signature status. Both of them are input tags. Let's pass them in here. Okay, so input, and the type of the input is going to be date, the very first one, because we're going to pass in number or a date here, and then we're going to have a value. Now the value that we're going to pass in here, I'm just going to leave it as an empty string for now, and I'm going to copy this. Now you know what? Let me add a style to this. So there are two ways of adding styles. As you know, in CSS we can add here our own style, type something in, or we could use a variable. Now this is what I'm actually going to do here. Above the return, I'm going to create a const, and let's say this is going to be input style. Now I'm going to assign this to an object. I'm going to use border, and let's set this to none. And I'm going to start passing this automatically in here. So instead of 2 curly brackets, I'm going to pass in the variable, which is going to take out the borders from this. Now you know what? I'm going to copy this one more time, change this to text. We're going to also have our signature on the right side. Let's go back up to our input style, and after border, I'm going to pass in a couple of things. Let's say a border to the bottom now, border. And remember, when you're typing in styles, exactly as in inline styles in React, you need to use camel case, border and camel case, so not dash, but border, camel case, bottom. And I'm going to give this a border to the bottom, and now you need to add between quotation mark 2 pixels and dot it. And there we go. Okay, next up, let's also take out the outline. So when I'm focusing in here, don't want to have that outline, so outline column and string of none, close it with a comma, and the last thing I want to add to this is a padding. I'm going to add a padding of 0.35 rem, and this is going to be top and bottom, and we're going to add 0 to left and right. Okay, now one last thing, if you want to change the background color, for example, of the entire document, you can select from here the document that is going to be automatically styled, then document body dot style, and let's go with the background, and I'm going to change the background to, let's say, hash EEE. It's going to be a grayed out background. Okay, you can see how easy we just styled the background color by grabbing onto the DOM element. It's not the shadow DOM, but the DOM element. So these two input tags, they should be way down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap them into a footer tag. You can also use just a regular div, but because they're all almost in a footer, I'm going to use a footer tag. So I'm going to select these two fellows, so you and you. Hold down shift, select them both, hold down option or alt on a PC, and arrow up. They should be moved up now. Okay, I'm going to use here a couple of classes now. So class name dflex, this is going to display it as flex. And now let's just use an inline style. So style, and let's pass in here so you can also see some inline styles. Let's pass in here a justify and content, and we're going to justify the content here with space around the elements. Now let's also display them relative, so position, comma, position, dash, string of relative. And now we can position them somewhere. I'm going to position them from the top with, let's say, 60 viewport heights. Okay, and they're going to be pushed down. You know, that's too much. 40 viewport heights, that's much better. Okay, so right now, if I would type something in our input tag, you will see it's not working because I add a empty value to it. Also, the date will not work because I just added empty values to it. If I would delete, let's delete it from the text, the empty value, hit save, type something in here, then it's going to work. But why am I adding here a value? Because I want to use this value. So let's hit save again and put our value back. And now it's time to use state.